Hi, this is Tiffani Bova, Global Customer Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce. I'm thrilled to be here today with you with InsideSales.com's Sales Acceleration Technology Summit to talk about customer experience being the new sales battleground. I think there isn't anybody in the sales profession today that hasn't heard a presentation or read an article where customer experience is being positioned as the next great thing that salespeople need to pay attention to. This presentation is going to walk you through some of the thinking that we have around what we're seeing in the market, as well as what I've been seeing over the last 6 months or so in meeting with many clients talking about this very topic. And I think the very best way to start this entire conversation is by framing it up with the following: that increasingly the experience is becoming the product. While people may lean on and companies may lean on the product and services that they're selling and the bits and bytes and speeds and feeds of those products, customers now feel like in many instances good enough is good enough. And so they're making decisions on who they're going to engage with or what products and services they're going to buy, both on either the pre-sales experience that they're having or the post-sales experience that they're having. You know, what happens as they're leading up to becoming and making a decision to becoming a customer, and then what may happen right thereafter. I think ultimately, you know, there are lots that feel, and I totally agree, that people buy from people and not necessarily companies. So the way in which salespeople can really improve their likelihood of increasing the experience, being viewed as more of the product, comes down to the behavior. You know, one of the very few things a sales rep can actually control in the day-to-day engagement that they have with customers is the behavior. So if you are a salesperson, sales manager, or sales leader of a big organization, really working on mentoring and coaching your sales force and your sales teams around making sure that the customer experience is always positive, regardless of whether they're following up on an email, they're chatting, they're tweeting, they're connecting via LinkedIn, all the information they may be sharing, you want to make sure that they're putting their best foot forward. Now, what's the best way to do that? I think with the amplification of multiple social channels, as well as the speed in which technology is changing and the expectations of the customer, here is this powerful combination of things that are happening in the marketplace that can't be ignored. When I hear CEOs say something like these quotes up on this slide, then I know they've started a journey to connect and do business with their customers in a whole new way. These companies will proactively service their customers, add features from customer insights, align their business models and principles based on the success of their customers. But to do this, they have to use technology and data to reinvent their businesses. And above all, they know speed matters. Their customers expect these new digital experiences, and they are being challenged by new players born in this digital age every single day. So you make a choice of either being disrupted in your sales process or being the disruptor in your sales process. Basically, from a speed perspective, you want to make sure you get to the future before your customers do. Welcome them when they arrive. If it's going to be a new channel, whether it's communicating to them via SMS or text messages or tweets or LinkedIn or Facebook or Pinterest or Instagram or whatever it might be, you want to make sure you're there ahead of their decision that they want to engage with your brand in that way. Secondarily, there's so much technology we can take advantage of that you need to exploit it in order to take advantage of all that it can give you, whether it's artificial intelligence, machine learning, prediction. All of those things can make sellers smarter. And once again, at that moment of truth, when they're engaging with a customer and creating a brand experience from a human to human, whether it's face-to-face or over the phone, you want to make sure they're putting their best foot forward. And third, you have to make sure that you understand that your brand is the sum of all the customer touch points, whether it's in service, whether it's in sales, whether it's in marketing, whether it's a systems engineer, whether it's a technician. It is the sum of all of these touch points. So just looking at one touch point in isolation and improving the customer experience on that end will leave you exposed to other sides of the business being neglected, not taking advantage of the new technology and innovation, and then being very slow to sort of respond to how customers in fact want to engage. And why is this so important? Because we've moved from this time where customers' expectations have been one of which was reactive. I call in, I send an email. For those of you who've been doing this a long time, you could send in a fax, and the brand would react. And so they'd react back with either an email or a call or even maybe put something in the mail. But they were reacting to a reach out that you had as a brand. We then moved to saying, well, if we can drive a lot of inbound calls from a sales perspective, or we want to improve service on inbound service calls, Let's get much more proactive, an outbound call in anticipation for what our customers may be looking for from us. This is where technology really gave us advancement. So salespeople can be much smarter around account-based marketing. They can be business development reps or sales development reps, right? Really outbound calling and looking at information across similar customers and coming up with a conclusion, working closely with marketing around what are the things this customer may want. And those expectations changing are really critical to make sure you amplify whatever decisions you're learning or whatever triggers you're learning along the way, that you change the behavior because of it. The third is one that I think is just really exciting. I think when salespeople can move to a place where they opt into using technology in a way that makes them smarter day to day, and they take the data and the analytics and they start to use the intelligence in a way that when they show up to work on Monday morning or Tuesday morning and they open up their laptop, they're excited about what information will the system actually provide them on what should they be doing next within certain accounts, what 3 or 4 activities in certain accounts are going to give them the best return on their time. That makes salespeople smarter. And I think the moment the relationship between a seller changes with technology of being, this is something that my management uses to manage me, and moves to something that becomes, this is enabling me to be a much smarter seller, improve my behavior in front of a customer, improve the experience over the long term, spending less time doing things that aren't delivering me the same level of returns. And so I now have become far more effective in actually driving my performance, reaching my quota, and then satisfying customers in the long run. Now, what happens when you say that if customer expectations have changed and we have to behave differently? This is where customer experience becoming this new battleground is hugely impactful. And if you think about these disconnected experiences within a brand, if marketing is focused on the buyer journey and sales is focused on the sales process, it's natural there would be a disconnect, because one is running towards quota, another one is potentially running towards, let me score leads, deliver marketing qualified leads, am I delivering the right content at the right time? But those two things are not actually meeting together. So we just did some recent research, Salesforce's State of Sales, and we see that high performers that focus on the customer are 1.5 times more available to customers at any time. They're more likely to proactively engage with customers. They're more likely to connect with customers, employees, partners, and products over the entire engagement. 1.9% are more likely to create communities for customers to find answers, right? Making it become this organic and fluid place where they can go within communities. They're more likely to provide consistent customer experience regardless of the channel, and more likely to engage customers based on their unique needs and preferences. And so if you lay that all on top of what this image is showing around the most important attributes, you can see that if we respond quickly, if we're consistent, if we have clear, consistent messaging, the results are we become much more likely to be high performing around reaching our quota, reaching our goals from a sales organization, but more importantly, really reaching the goals with a customer experience and the entire customer life cycle. Now, what happens if you don't meet customer expectations? We can see through our research that mostly meeting customer expectations, 93% of the time, are overperforming. They're hitting their quota, they're meeting their metrics, customer satisfaction is high, and those that don't meet customer expectations, 42% of the time, right, less than half, are underperforming significantly. So if you are looking for a lever in order to improve sales performance, you can look to processes, but make sure each decision you make around those processes are actually improving the customer experience. Just improving a process because it's going to give you better visibility into what a salesperson is doing every minute of every day of every week of every quarter, maybe not the right decision. But if you make a decision with the customer's experience in mind, you may make different decisions. Now, if you fail to meet the customer expectation, right, overperformers are hitting them. Those that are not meeting expectations actually have implications across decreased customer loyalty. And the challenge there is, if they're not happy customers, they may be out talking poorly about you, right? And representing your brand, misrepresenting your brand out in the market. You're losing deals. You have revenue attrition, potentially for those of you that are in recurring revenue businesses. You have wasted resources. You're missing quotas. You've decreased the average order value. You've decreased share of wallet. You have longer sales cycles and lower forecast accuracy. So when you're not meeting customer expectations, it can have far-reaching implications across the entire business, from loyalty all the way to missing quotas. So you want to make sure that you take this seriously around, not just using tools and enablement and technology for ways in which to manage your sales force better, but really thinking about how can it help us increase the likelihood that a customer will have a positive experience with us. And if that is the result, then we have a high-performing sales organization. When you think about acquiring customers on both the marketing side and the sales side, you have to reimagine how you view a customer coming into your quote-unquote funnel. Right? A prospect or a lead is fantastic, right? And you say we need, for every 1,000 leads we have, we can call 100 people and 10 deals close and 2 are going to close right away. And you have an understanding of what that looks like. But you don't just want to go from prospect to new customer, or from lead to cash, or from quote to cash. You want to make sure you take it all the way through, from a prospect to a new customer, all the way towards an emotional connection with them, where they are absolutely advocating on your behalf. The benefit of them advocating on your behalf, I can't stress this enough. This is where things start to get really exciting, and using all the new omni-channels that are available to us. That I believe your best sales force today is your customers advocating on your behalf. A majority of the buying journey happens before they ever reach out to a sales organization, which means they're somewhere else looking to even put you on the consideration list to begin with. So they talk to people within their network, trusted advisors, communities, associations. They're reading articles from thought leaders. They're looking to other companies that look like them. And if on the personal side, right, it could be friends and neighbors, etc. But the thing you need to take away here is that customers are telling your story, good or bad, to other potential prospects without your knowledge. And so the more they start to advocate on your behalf, the better experiences you give them, the more flywheel effect you have on that multiplier of customers talking and raving about you to others that look like them. Now, if you're going to start to say, okay, customer experience is important to us, we want to use it as a competitive weapon, we want to make sure our customers are advocating on our behalf, you can't just look at it from what is sales doing to make this better. It has to start to align itself around each of the customers' service organizations, meaning those that are touching customers, sales, marketing, service. When the metrics are misaligned, and sales is on quota, and marketing may be on leads, and service is on resolution time, what ends up happening is everyone's running towards their metric and towards their goals, and they may not, in fact, meet at that moment where the customer actually engages with each of you in any given moment. So you want to make sure that when you are aligning those metrics amongst these teams, that you think about what's going to get us closer together. I use this one example here of select your company's top 3 marketing priorities because I just wanted to call out that it's brand awareness and customer engagement and social media, content optimization, etc. But all of these things require this connection point between sales and marketing. You just can't do it with just marketing, and you just can't do it with just sales. Now, if you're a really small company and the person who's running sales is also running marketing, and you only have 3 sellers in your sales force and 1 marketer, I understand that it tends to be people are running, wearing 2 hats. But when you start to get of a certain size and you have sort of a separation of duties between each of these organizations, you want to make sure they always come together with the customer in the middle of it. So one thing I would suggest is that your top 3 marketing priorities for marketers should be align better with sales, and the sales number 1 should be align better with marketing. And from a service perspective, it's making sure that sales and marketing understand the role that you play when you talk to customers. So what are the key alignments and key components of improving customer experience and outcomes? If you align, sales has insight into all the customer interactions, whether it's on service, whether it's marketing, it could be billing, it could be any part of your organization. You want to make sure sales has insights, that there's a single data source around that entire customer engagement, as well as the entire customer interaction with your brand. Service provides sales with intelligence on customer issues, right? So they can be bubbled up. Remember that you want the sales rep to opt into using the technology. If you could get them the information ahead of time, so when a They reach out to a customer. They don't call a customer on Monday when the customer's had all these issues over the weekend and the sales rep isn't aware of it, and he's calling trying to proactively, predictively upsell or cross-sell them, and they weren't made aware of that service issue over the weekend. They're really going to look insensitive to the customer's business. So they may delay making that call for a couple of days till service resolution works itself out, or they may call the customer and just say, hey, I'm aware that this is going on. I'm working with service. If there's anything I can do in the meantime, please reach out to me. But that connection between service and sales is really critical. And then service can actually identify opportunities to upsell and cross-sell based on what a customer may have called in on to ask technical support questions or how to do something questions. And so educating the sales force is difficult, in a one-to-one hall room conversation or, via sort of leaving them a post-it note on their desk. If you can enter the information and create an action for the sales rep, right, once again, showing up on that morning, opening up the laptop and seeing here are the 3 or 4 things service is identified as great opportunities for me to follow up on. I have a higher likelihood to service that customer in a great, in a really impactful way to their business, all the better. So making sure that when you think between customer experience and the sales outcomes, service may be the linking connector between those conversations. So really make sure you pull service into each of those conversations. Now, if you're going to try to connect the metrics, you've got service involved. The issue here is going to be that most of the metrics that we use within the sales organization doesn't necessarily include those that are soft sort of customer experience types of metrics. So thinking about what are the ways in which we can metric and measure our sales force in order to guide them towards these behaviors that our customers feel are most impactful to them, right? Remember, to drive advocacy, it could be growing the number of leads, new customer, increase customer retention, becoming a trusted advisor, personalized experience, FaceTime, etc. Now, the only way you can do this is you've got to track it somewhere. And so is it that you're looking at net promoter scores? Is it you're looking at customer satisfaction surveys? What are the things beyond the logical and traditional, how many calls did you make? What does your pipeline look like? What's the velocity of that pipeline? How many deals have you closed? What have you upsold, cross-sold, right? The 10 or 15 things you always metric as a salesperson and a sales leader. What are the things you can start adding in that have a lot more customer experience flavor to them? And you have to allow some flexibility and empower the sales reps to potentially make the right decisions on behalf of the customer, even if it goes against what the traditional metric may be. So an example may be in a call center. You may say, each call can only be a minute or a minute and a half. And then a customer calls in with a really serious problem. And that service representative knows for sure this call is going to go longer than a minute and a half. And so they have a couple of options. They can get off the call in a minute and a half and provide a horrible experience. They can stay on the phone 5 minutes, give the customer the right experience. And even though it may signal a yellow light to the manager, or it may send a note saying, Tiffani has had 15 5-minute conversations today, well in excess of what we expect out of the customer service. Maybe there's an issue going on. It could be a training issue, it could be a service issue, it could be that she's just providing really great customer service to those particular customers, but you want to make sure you dig into it versus just coming to that particular customer service rep and saying, hey, you cannot let these calls go that long. We just can't afford to have you do that. Try to dig into why is that happening. And that's where you start to change what those metrics will be across the entire organization and trying to get them more connected. If you start looking at what they may be in the future, customer experience is actually starting to overtake the traditional sales metrics as the top sales key performance indicator. So customer experience and success, like I said, can be net promoter scores, customer satisfaction surveys in dealing with a rep, time to resolution, upsell, cross-sell, the lifetime value of a customer. What is their average deal size? If they're selling more of an average deal, it could be that they're really presenting a holistic solution to the customer, which is a good thing. Customers having a good experience. Now, if they're overselling, you have to be aware of that too. But focusing in on the customer experience and success, more so than the process itself, but those are so close in percentages that you want to make sure that you're balancing the customer experience with the sales process to drive the right behaviors within your sales force. The one comment I'll make here, and one thing that people tend to overlook, and this is such a basic statement, but it's really impactful, that customers are getting the exact experience that you intentionally or unintentionally designed for them. So if you make the decision for a service representative to say, get off the phone in a minute and a half, that was an intentional decision to actually result in a poor customer experience, especially if the customer needed more time. If a sales rep is on a call with a customer and they're asking complex questions and sales needs to call them back or transfer them to other people and they have to go to 3 or 4 people to get an answer, that could be an unintentional design, that it goes from, you know, a pre-sales or business development or sales development rep through outbound activities, and then it gets handed over to an account executive, and then it might get handed over to a sales engineer, and you've passed a customer 3 times. While that is the correct process, the result of those decisions, the intentional result of those decisions, is the fact that the customer doesn't have a good experience. So making sure you understand that with each decision, you may be actually impacting the experience that they have with your brand. Once again, putting them at the center of the process decisions. Would your customer like the fact that it takes 14 steps to get something done? Probably not. I also would say you don't wake up on, Monday morning when you're getting ready for a sales process planning meeting and say, you know what, we're going to push 25 steps to our customers to have them get through signing up to be a customer. There's no way you started that day saying, I'm going to make it really difficult. I'm not going to be easy to do business with. That wasn't your intention. But once you silo those decisions, something's getting decided in marketing, something's getting decided in sales, something's getting decided in service. All of a sudden, those 3 different decision trees lend itself to, it took 20 steps to get something done. So make sure you deconstruct some of the most impactful processes and make sure you're not unintentionally making it more complicated. So the future of selling, what does it look like? At the end of the day, I'd tell you it's contextual. Understanding where the customer is in their buyer journey, meeting them with your sales process, ensuring the experience is at the center of the decisions that you make. It's data-driven, which means you have the data in order to be much more proactive and predictive in the way you engage with your customers. But more importantly, you're trying to help your salespeople be intelligent at the moment of truth when they are speaking to a customer and they're either trying to sell them, answer questions, upsell, cross-sell, whatever it might be. You want to make sure that the sales rep is set up for success. And a lot of that comes down with how knowledgeable they are when they're actually sitting in front of a customer or they're engaging with a customer online, over the phone, or face-to-face. So you have to establish a customer-centric culture, right? Start from the outside. Deconstruct the processes, plug your customer into each of the steps, and see if you're actually making the experience good for them. You must redefine relationships, influence, and engagement. Remember, your greatest sales force today is actually your customers advocating on your behalf. When you start to think of them that way, it may redefine the way you engage with them, communicate with them, because in the end, you want to have them help influence more people to come along to your brand. And it's not about avoiding performance metrics. Many sales leaders will say to me, well, Tiffani, it sounds like you're saying just throw the traditional sales metrics to the wayside and start looking at only customer experience. No, this is about creating KPIs which foster the right behavior so that you still have predictability in your business. You can still manage your sales force. But I want you to focus on those that will trigger possible coaching and mentoring. To how do you get them to maybe improve at certain steps? How do you enable them to be smarter and more predictive and intelligent in front of the customer? But then more importantly, looking beyond the short term, have to hit my number today, this week, this quarter, and thinking, over the long term, if I can in fact get the customer to be along with our brand over a long term, and they start advocating on our behalf, even better. Shifting from big data to intelligence to predictive selling. I have to say, at our Dreamforce conference a few weeks back, and I was watching the Einstein keynote, and I joked to somebody sitting next to me that all of this great intelligence and analytics almost makes me want to go back into sales, right? Because I think I was super good at using enablement tools in order to help me be competitive along the way, using ACT, using Salesforce, etc. I always felt that it gave me a competitive edge to be smarter when I was talking to a customer. But now with this predictive analytics behind and the engine that can actually push me the next best thing to do, I think it's just really a greenfield opportunity for sales reps to take advantage of all this data and all this intelligence and all these insights that are coming because of the new technology advancements. And then moving from segmenting customers just ever so basically to actually thinking about how do we become more intimate with the information we have. And it doesn't have to be just human. It can be that you are now communicating to them in a more personalized way, that you're using multiple channels in order to do that. But at the end of the day, the more you can help your customers thrive, whatever it is you're selling them, the stronger your relationship will become. Whether you're selling in a B2C environment in their consumer lives, whether you're selling in B2B environment in their professional lives, or you're selling in B2B that then obviously sells to the C or to other B. And the fun part about this, when you start thinking about relationships and what they will become, it's absolutely just really spectacular, and looking at all the things that are happening around the Internet of Things. And when things start selling to things, that really redefines relationships when it comes to sales. But the last thing I'll leave you with is, in the future, customer-driven sales organizations will completely reset value and meaningful engagement with customers. You have to provide value with each touch, with each interaction. You want to be strong and you want to be empowered to bring the customer forward the best solution they possibly can get from you. And you have to do that with learning and understanding what your customer's business is, and taking advantage of all the technology advancements and all the insight and intelligence you can gather, especially as you start to pull service and marketing and sales and have a single view of that customer. The more powerful you're going to be as a seller, the more powerful you'll be as a sales organization, and you'll be absolutely high performing for both your own company but for your customers in the end. So I'd like to thank you guys for your time. Appreciate the opportunity to participate in the Sales Acceleration Summit. I look forward to keeping in touch with you. Have a great day.